Hello, everyone, and welcome to Monday. This is First Things First. I'm Jenna Wolfe. That's the Hall of Famer Cris Carter. That is Nick Wright. We have a great show today because we had a great weekend of sports. The Celtics got booed off their own floor this weekend. Dak Prescott had some interesting comments about Tom Brady and his lovely wife. But we will start with the big showdown between the Lakers and the Sixers. Well, at least it was supposed to be. Turned out to be a big blowout between the two. Joel Embiid led the way for Philly with 37 points as the Sixers, boy, they just ran away with this 143-120. New addition Tobias Harris chipped in with 22 points. Watch out for the 76ers starting five. They looked good. The Lakers now back up to 500, 2.5 games out of the playoff picture. Here is LeBron after the loss.
We had too many breakdowns, way too many breakdowns. I mean, we scored the ball as well as you can score the ball, especially in that first quarter. But, we gave up too many pain points. We didn't keep the floor, shrunk and make many outside jumpers to begin the game. And once they start getting to the paint, then it kind of opened up everything else.
It's only been 2 games, but I think we got a chance. We got a lot to work on. Obviously, our whole offensive package hasn't been, used. We got a long way to go. But I think the potential we have, especially come playoff time, matching up with other teams, I think we got a chance, and we got to keep working, keep getting better, and learn how to play with each other.
All right, so, Nick, we'll get to the Sixers side of this, but I want to start with the Lakers. LeBron laid out a number of things that the team did not do well, in addition to their lack of defense in this game. Are you concerned with the team you see out there now? Because this is the team that we're going to have the rest of the way now. Are you concerned this team doesn't make the playoffs?
You can't dismiss it as a possibility. We're at the point in the season where you can start looking at the standings. You can start saying, okay, how many wins is it going to take to get the 8 seed, to get the 7 seed? And by my rough estimate, the Lakers got 10 losses to play with. 26
games left?
26 games left. They got 10 losses. I think they're going to have to get to 44 and 38 if they want to have any shot at the 7 seed, and that might be the minimum threshold just to get even the 8 seed. And so you look at their schedule, you look at what they have, and you say, okay, they should be able to get the 8 spot. They are going to have to play well to be able to get the 7 spot, but you can't look at a game like last night or yesterday afternoon where they play no defense whatsoever, where it's a 4-point game with 3 minutes left in the third quarter. LeBron goes to the bench, and when he comes back in 5.5 minutes later, they're down 20, and say this is a team that is playing the level of basketball it's going to need to be able to make sure they go 16-10 down the stretch. See, I know that they didn't have Lonzo, but that when he comes back, it's just going to add a little more uncertainty, even though he's a good player, to what are right now Luke Walton just throwing darts at a rotation. Reggie Bullock, you're new to the team. Why don't you start? Josh Hart, DNP coach's decision for any reason in particular? Not that I can tell. Like, they are.
He might have given him a chance to rest that knee. He's been struggling with the knee injuries, giving him a few games off, so he might have given him an extra couple days.
Right, and that's probably what the rationale is going to be. But I don't think they went into the game knowing Josh Hart's definitely not playing, and I don't know what the reason was why Reggie Bullock. It's one thing to start him because you want to add shooting, but for Reggie Bullock to get 30 minutes and Rondo to get 15 minutes when he was coming off the great performance against the Clippers, it just feels like, or against the Celtics, pardon me, it just feels like there's a lot of guessing going on, and we don't have a lot of time for guessing left in the season.
No, there's tremendous concerns, and it's based on those 18, 20 games LeBron James missed. When you take a quarter of the season with this young team, then you get to the end where now they got 25 games. So their margin of error, it's been sucked up in LeBron's absence. So what they can't do is they can't panic. What they can't do is right now is just continue to build on what they're doing, because Nick might have a goal that they need to reach the 6th spot, but they just need to get in the playoffs. And I thought it's very disappointing because you would think after the Boston, that was a huge upset in being able to get that win there, that they would follow it up with a decent performance, and through 2.5 quarters, you thought, okay, they're right where they want to be. LeBron have a big push in the 4th quarter. It's anyone's game. But this is what we saw in Cleveland. LeBron goes to the bench. By the time he comes back in, yeah, the game, you can still win it, but you have to burn so much energy because of the deficit. So these young players that are very, very talented, that's the big difference in Cleveland. When LeBron went out, they just weren't that talented. They're still very, very talented. And at some point, you have to decide, and most teams do it, and we see it all the time with the Warriors, you have to put the intensity on the defensive end. And they just did not have that yesterday.
The defense was horrible. And to C's point about LeBron, this is one of the risks. LeBron very clearly, it seemed to me, especially with how well Kuzma was playing, was trying to moderate his workload, if you will, for a fourth-quarter push.
Yeah, he wasted all that energy going to watch Zion play, and he didn't do nothing the night before. I mean, the evening before there at Virginia.
Right. So, I mean, he should be ready to go. But then when you've got something, an extra charge left for the fourth quarter, but then you're down 20 when you go in the game in the fourth quarter, you'd have been better off going all out early to try to give your team
They made a big
lead.
push to try to get it to single digits.
Absolutely. And so, like, just like the Celtics game, there would have been some positives even if they had lost it, if Rondo didn't hit that shot. Let's say somehow in the fourth quarter the Lakers hit 8 threes and they win this game 145-143. There would still be enormous concerns in a win because 120 points is supposed to be enough to at least be in the game. Like, Kyle Kuzma having 23 in the first quarter is supposed to be a game where it's like, all right, we're getting an outlier performance from our number 2 guy. These are games that if we don't win, they're at least close late. And the number of open threes and wide open just drives to the lane like it was an all-star game. The Lakers defense, which had been solid leading up to this game, they gave up. It looked like a team that was on 3 games in 4 nights off a back-to-back, and they weren't. They were rested. I know it's a road trip, but they were rested. There's no excuse for that.
There was one play where Joel Embiid literally just waltzed his way in. There was no one that even stopped him. So let's just talk about the other side of the ball. And talk about the 76ers. I mean, they had Tobias Harris there. I think it was his second game. They looked like it took them all of no time to figure out how to play together. They do have some issues, but how good is this starting 5 right now for the Sixers?
Well, let's just talk about their center. Joel Embiid's a special basketball player. Now, he's fulfilling all the prophecy that people said. Man, if he's able to stay healthy. They weren't able to say, oh, if he develops this. He already had all that. He could shoot a 3. He's got a low post game like a post player that we haven't seen. So everything starts in this NBA that's without centers or big men. Everything in Philly, to me, it starts with Joel Embiid. That's one of the biggest mismatches on any team facing the opposition. I don't care what team you put out there. You put Golden State Warriors, DeMarcus Cousins, oh, he don't want no piece of him and what he can do. So, for me, their ability to have a dominant player, and it should be established off Joel Embiid. Man, Jimmy Butler is not the player Joel Embiid is. Ben Simmons is not the player. And if they start that way, if they run their offense through him, if they play transition, and then when they get to the half court, they go through Joel Embiid, to me, that's the way that they would scare the rest of the NBA. If they don't do that, which Joel Embiid, he talked about there in his soundbite, sometimes offensively, they're not structured. They had some problems. Jimmy Butler complained about the offense. So we know they're elite defensively because of the size, and they have 3 very good individual defenders. But from an offensive standpoint, go through Joel Embiid. When you're not in transition, go through Joel Embiid. That, to me, that's a special, special unit. That's a special team. And I wouldn't be wanting to face Joel Embiid. No. I want to play Giannis. I don't want to play Giannis, and I don't want to face Joel Embiid because I just believe in the playoffs, forget the whistle. Okay, Joel Embiid had 37 yesterday. 11 of 12 from the free throw line. So go ahead and foul him. For Joel Embiid, of all the great true low-post big men we've seen, one enormous edge he has is he's so physically imposing, but putting him to the free throw line is something Sixers are happy with. Like, that is something, it's not like, oh, man, if he doesn't get the end. It's like 2 of the other great centers. Yes. Kareem, you couldn't foul him. Elijah Wan, you couldn't foul them. And that's what made them special. Not in the fourth quarter. Oh, if you foul them, you're automatically giving them points.
And one thing he's done so much better this year is something actually your brother pointed out a year and a half ago when we were eating with him, which is the NBA, the way it's officiated. They let the defender beat up on the big man in the half court. The one spot where the offensive big man has an edge is in that secondary transition. He could run down, get his spot on the block, and knock the hell out of whoever's on him. And they never call an offensive foul on that. Embiid got that coaching point this summer because when he's running down the court in the secondary transition, he is burying his guy, basically shoving his guy out of bounds and then reposting. Ben Simmons and others have been very good at seeing that, pitching it ahead, and that's a layup. So you also saw in this game, and you're going to see the added spacing with Tobias Harris out there where he has more room to maneuver in the paint. He was spectacular yesterday, and the Lakers had no answer, but the reality is most teams don't have any answer for him.
One note, only James Harden is averaging more free throws right now than Joel Embiid.
Yep.
So great for him. Time now for Put a Grade on It, sponsored by CarMax. Speaking of Embiid, he had an excellent game. We mentioned it, 37 points in this Sixers win. Nick, go ahead and put a grade on Joel Embiid's night.
I'm not like CC. I don't do pluses and minuses, so I'm just going to give him an old school A.
There you go,
I
man.
thought it was
You're
excellent.
getting better, man.
I don't know how you give him anything other than A plus if you're into that. He was great.
Yeah.
He was the best player on the court, and he was great on both ends. They had no answer for him whatsoever.
His intermediate game, too, is developing to be very, very special. He had some dream shakes about 12 to 15 feet away from the bucket. So special player. Looking forward to seeing how much better he's going to get.
All right, we'll take a break. Coming up, the Celtics got booed off their own floor. Next on FS1. And you can always check us out on the Fox Sports channel on Sirius XM. We're back right after this. Get to the Celtics in a second, but first, Duke and Virginia. Zion is so good, but this was incredible. Watch him take off from so far away to block a three-point shot.
At this point in the game, Coach K had told him, don't give up any three-pointers. So he overcommitted to try to get the guy to drive. And Zion's like, I was trying to get him to drive. He wouldn't drive, so I had to swat it.
Look at where he is when the guy catches the ball. He's even with the rim. I understand it was a slow gather and a low pass. I get all that. This is unreal weak side help defense. I mean, he's in the lane when the guy catches the ball.
Lakers, Sixers. Joel Embiid fools the defense with an elaborate pump fake before driving.
All right, listen, Joel Embiid a couple years ago shot 37% from three. This year, down under 30%. You can't be going for these pump. Make him shoot them. Make Joel Embiid if you want to shoot a three, because if not, he's going to torture you like this, Tyson Chandler. That's a bad job.
Joel Embiid's got it all going. There's no defense for him. Yeah, that's a nice way to set it up, Nick. But he did hit a couple of these yesterday. That's all you need to hit as a 7-footer is a couple.
More from this game. Tobias Harris elevates over JaVale McGee for a nasty one-handed slam.
I was so glad to see that they got him involved in the offense because he's instant offense, but you got to give him the ball. And I was concerned with the ball. You only got one basketball. Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, Tobias Harris, the second best offensive weapon the Sixers have behind Embiid.
The Alliance of American Football is here. It started strong. Mike Bercovici of the San Diego Fleet took an insane hit. It sent the quarterback, the ball, and his helmet flying in 3 different directions. He did return to the game, though. They
had their debut weekend this weekend. I don't think it was some great football, but this was one hell of a hit. They have one rule in this league, the way they do onside kicks. It's a 4th and 12 from your 28. That's how you do it. I think that's smart. People like this hit, though. I mean, this is obviously illegal in every other level of football. But
what happened to the safety measures? What happened to all these guys with concussions?
That doesn't exist in this new league's first weekend, evidently.
On to the Celtics now. It was not a great weekend for them. They blew a 28-point lead Saturday to the Clippers, causing their fans to boo them off the court. To make matters worse, Kyrie Irving left the game with a knee injury. He's listed as day-to-day. It seems like the Celtics' successes as well. Marcus Morris did not sugarcoat the issue.
It's not fun, man. Like, it's not fun. We're not competing at a high level. You know, even though we're winning, it's still not. It's just not fun. You know, I don't see the joy in the game. I watch all these other teams around the league, guys up on the bench, they jumping on the court, they're doing all, you know, other stuff that just look like they're enjoying, you know, their teammates' success. They're enjoying everything, and they're playing together, and they're playing to win. And when I look at us, I just see a bunch of individuals. We got to play to win. That's sacrificing playing hard, that's sacrificing, you know, being a better teammate, that's sacrificing whatever it is, you know, we have to put it to the side. No one's getting traded, trade deadline's over. We're competing for a championship, and that's how we got to approach these games. I'm going to lose or draw, man. We're going to lose games, but we don't have no attitude. We don't have no toughness. We ain't having fun. You know, it's going to be a long season.
Marcus Morris insinuating something needs to change down the stretch. What do you think it is if the Celtics are going to make the playoffs?
Well, there was a number of people, as far as Brad Stevens, that had a tremendous amount of confidence in Brad Stevens as one of the elite coaches. I believe he's a very, very good coach, but I think that only time will tell if you're an elite coach. How much can you vary how you're going to play based on your talent? Can you win when you're less talented, which they did last year, which for Brad, that to me, that's what he normally did. That's what he did at Butler. When he didn't have 5-star recruits, he had a bunch of 2-star, 3-star guys. They played a great system. That's what got them to national prominence in college basketball. Last year, and how they do things, their out-of-bounds plays, their dead ball, timeout, what happens in those things, and how they play defense. We gave Brad Stevens a lot of credit. I never said he was one of the best coaches, but I knew he was a good coach. Playing with a talented roster, what would he do? That was the question I had last year. What will he do when Gordon Hayward comes back and Kyrie Irving comes back? And now we're starting to see it. This team is not gelling. We saw Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum thrive last season during the playoffs. Now we have Kyrie back, taking over the team. Gordon Hayward back, only a shell of himself. We don't see the team thriving because what they have not done is they're not going to sacrifice for their other teammates. That's why guys would come to work and not be happy. When you're not happy, it's not about shooting percentage. I need to work on my free throw. Man, we're not playing good defense. It's no. What they're telling me to do, I don't feel like is best for my game. Jaylen Brown, you could see it in him. Tatum, you can see it in his game. Kyrie, it's always been in his game. If you know Kyrie, you know the stories there. Him and Ty Lue, what they went through, what LeBron went through. Kyrie is about dribbling the basketball. He's the best dribbler of the basketball ever, and trying to take that away from him is not something someone's going to be able to do. So how they're going to play offensively, last year, Kyrie was out of the lineup. Kyrie's their worst defender. So now with him in the lineup, they're not. Their help defense is not necessarily the same. So guys aren't happy with their roles on the team. That's what makes coming to work not pleasant. And as a defensive team, this team is not sacrificing for their teammates trying to be elite on the defensive end.
And it's very difficult to ask guys at this point in their career to take a lesser role than they expect or they think they've earned. Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Terry Rozier haven't been paid yet. They haven't been all-stars yet. They haven't established themselves yet. They thought, especially the first two, were trending towards that, and then you ask them to take a back seat. One of the guys you asked them to take a back seat for in Gordon Hayward is a guy, we're 55 games in. They're all better than Gordon Hayward right now. That's got to be frustrating. The fact, from the coaching standpoint, these young guys are frustrated and complaining, but the biggest issue with Brown and Tatum, they're both down 7% in three-point percentage from last year. Last year, Jaylen Brown was 39% from three. That's excellent. Now he's 32%. Last year, Tatum was 43% from three, one of the best in the league. Now he's 37%. So, their game has regressed somewhat. They're not happy with their role, and this is why that loss this weekend was so bad. They're up 28 the moment Kyrie hurts his knee. Now, thankfully for them, he's going to be okay. But if there was ever a moment for the young guys to try to say, see, look, we got this, you blow a 28-point lead in the final 30 minutes of the basketball game, or 28 minutes of the basketball game, the moment Kyrie goes out. Any push and pull Kyrie has had with, guys, you need to listen to me, you need to follow me, it got further established when the team had a 40-point turnaround in the negative direction the moment he goes out of the basketball game.
Now, it's easy to blame it on all the other things. To me, young players, a lot of times, they think 1 + 1 = 2. Oh, we played well last year. We played well in the playoffs. In year number 2, you know what I'm getting ready to do? I'm getting ready to give the league. I'm getting ready to handle the league. It doesn't always work out that way. And you can't blame that on the other players. Sometimes these younger players, that second year, third year, they don't grow as much as they thought because they thought the league was easier. They thought they had it figured out. So some of the problems that they have are in these young players because they're getting the minutes. It's not like Kyrie is shading their face when they're shooting. Right. You know, so we can blame it on those other things, but these younger players, regardless, I know this offseason, I know they were committed. They said they came back in better shape. Their game was in better shape, but it doesn't always equate to the numbers. Being a professional athlete is very, very hard. And these young players are starting to see in year number 2, there's a lot more to the game that I have to figure out that I thought I had figured out in year number 1.
Is there something to the fact that, look, last year when Kyrie went out, the team figured out how to play without him, changed up their game a little bit into more of Brad Stevens' system type of basketball and not really Kyrie going out there and doing his thing and everyone else were supporting cast members, and they flourished and they did pretty well. Is there something to the fact that maybe the young players aren't all growing when he's out on the court?
Listen, Kyrie, to his credit, after a really horrific start to the season, first 2 weeks, he's playing the best basketball of his career.
He is.
He couldn't be an All-NBA member this year. He's averaging a career high in assists. What he's been doing over the last 6 weeks has been
It's definitely his best basketball as a Celtic.
And I think you can argue this is going to end up at the end of the year be his best year of his career, start to finish. Like we'll see how the numbers look out, and we'll see how, because he has such a bigger responsibility now than in the years they were good in Cleveland when LeBron took on the lion's share of the load. But the other thing, listen, you are at this point in the season, unless you have had a major injury to a key member of your team that changed it, you are about what your record says you are. And the Celtics all year long have been 4th or 5th in the Eastern Conference. And when we talk about how great they were last year, there's one way to look at it, 1 game away from the NBA Finals. Another way is 1 game away from being bounced in the first round. Like the 3 games against Philly that went down to the wire. Losing up 3-2 against the Cavs with Kevin Love out and losing both those games, including one on your home court. They have not figured out how all these puzzle pieces fit together. And even though Kyrie and Al Horford, I think, have done what is expected of them, the other pieces, and Marcus Morris having a career year, all the advanced numbers say they should be better than they are. But their win-loss record, 56 games in, says they're an above-average team. And that's what they are, an above-average team right now.
Last year they figured out, though, how to all play together, didn't they, after Kyrie went down?
But they had been all – I think it's easier to figure it out when you're just saying, hey, guys, you were getting 18 minutes. Now you're getting 22 minutes. I think the reverse is what's more difficult.
I think the surprise that they're not better, because both Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, they can do more things. They can dribble better. I guarantee you in their workouts, they can shoot better. I guarantee you they can go other places on the court that they're more comfortable. But it's not transferring over to the game. I'm just not going to blame Kyrie, all right? They're just not having a great year. If Kyrie was not having a great year, then I could see, okay, well, let's blame him. I believe that the system that Brad is trying to run, when we have talented players, there's less freelancing in that system. And these guys have not thrived unless it's a structured system, which they had last year during the playoffs.
All right, we'll take a break. Switch gears a little, talk some football. Does Dak Prescott deserve to be paid more than Tom Brady?
Yeah,
that's next on First Things First. Here's a quick and free way to finally stick to your New Year's resolutions. Start listening to podcasts on Spotify. With more than 150,000 podcasts, including many of the world's most popular self-improvement shows, you can learn how to balance a budget, balance your diet, and even learn how to feel balanced while meditating. All podcasts on Spotify are free, and you can download episodes for those times when you've gone off the grid, to get all that newfound balance back into your life. So start the year off right and start listening to podcasts on Spotify. All right, let's move on to a great matchup from Saturday night. Rockets
Hate to see it.
and Thunder picked this up in the fourth quarter. Paul George hitting the 3. He had 45 on the night less than a minute to go. Now James Harden hits the runner. That puts the Rockets up 1. Harden with 42. Next possession, this is Russell Westbrook. He will make the layup, brings the Thunder up 1. Westbrook, 9 triple-doubles in a row. That ties an NBA record. Harden tries to give the Rockets the lead. Cannot make it. Thunder come back from being down 26 points. They win 117-112. Cris Carter, which of these two teams is the bigger threat to the Warriors in the West?
Ooh, man, this is difficult. I mean, this is difficult, and it's difficult for me because of one player, and that's Paul George. I just been so mesmerized by how well he plays. He's the best. dual player in the NBA. Both sides of the court. No NBA player do we see picking up guys at half court, elite players like Harden, that he's able to guard them in the half court. His ability to be able to shoot the three. Clearly he knows his role playing opposite of Russ and is very, very excited to be able to keep his career going there. I mean, that decision that he made with the basketball that he's playing now, to me, it's one of the most exciting things that are going on in the NBA. If I had an all-NBA team, Paul George is on first all-NBA right now.
Right now, he and Giannis.
Yeah, he should be in the conversation. If we weren't having these record-breaking what Harden was doing and what some other people, what Giannis is doing, Paul George, to me, is right there in the conversation of the most impressive season.
And when you mention first-team All-NBA, the reason I say he and Giannis is LeBron is on a nearly unprecedented streak of consecutive first-team All-NBA at the forward spot. And with 26 games to go, it looks like that's going to get snapped. Like, maybe it won't, but it's hard.
Me and Dusty are working on a list. We might come up with like a Cris list at the All-Star break, All-NBA. Or one time we come up with a list.
And so, but Paul George, what is so impressive to me is, at a point in your career where your goal is typically to maintain, or I'll become a little bit of a better shooter because my athleticism is going down a bit, he is playing the best basketball of his life. He's never averaged more than 24 a game. Not in Indiana, not in his first year with OKC. He's averaging 28 points per game. So to answer your question, which of these two teams could be the bigger threat? I believe it would be Oklahoma City for this reason and this reason only. You only need Russ to catch fire for a week. Like, they are doing what they're doing while Russell Westbrook is having a historically inefficient shooting season as far as the number of threes he shoots, shooting under 30%, and shooting 65% from the line. His MVP year, he was a fine three-point shooter. He was a very good free throw shooter as he had been his whole career. If for 10 days in the playoffs, that Russ comes back, because we know the rebounding, passing, and intensity is going to be there, then they can be a very hard out. But credit to Russ also for ceding control of the team to Paul George, and Paul George sees that, which is why in his post-game press conferences, he always brings up Russ. He's like, listen, we all feed off Russ's energy. He gives it back to Russ publicly because in the game, he is what everything revolves around for this team.
So we know that whether Russ is having an up year or down year, Russ is going to be there strong, and you know that Harden's going to be there strong. How much of between these two teams the success is going to come down to their second star, the Paul George or the Chris Paul, helping out these two superstars?
Well, I think the stars have something to do with it, but now we're talking about who they're going to be playing. It's about Golden State. Man, that second guy ain't no good. Your third guy ain't no good. Fourth guy ain't no good. In the matchups, it's those role players. To be able to match Golden State with Boogie Cousins, going to have 40 games under his belt. Like, he's going to be rolling. Draymond is shooting the ball better. Clay's had a good year after a slow start. KD can turn it on whenever he wants. Steph has been amazing. Like, it doesn't even come down to those second, third players now because it's a different NBA. Man, we need who's going to come off the bench to be able to give you those critical 15 to 20 minutes because, man, this is an NBA that we have never seen that, man, your second guy, right? I mean, how important is it? He's important, but based on the depth of what Golden State can do to you, it's deeper.
To your point, like, let's just say Paul George X's out KD and Russ X's out Steph.
Yeah.
Then you still have Clay and then Boogie. And so the question is, like, can Jeremy Grant play the series of his life? What can you get from Nerlens Noel off the bench? Where I'll give OKC credit is when they moved on from Melo, they could have just said, we're trying to save money. Instead, they brought a more than competent player back in the Melo transaction in Dennis Schroeder. Dennis Schroeder gives them a legitimate backup point guard who's been one of the others that you're talking about. But I don't look at Russ as their top guy. I think Russ is maybe the lead guy on the marquee, but on the court, Paul George is their best player.
Quickly, who would be an MVP with these two guys?
It's right
Harden.
now, to me, it's Harden 1, Giannis 2, Paul George 3, and it's a pretty clear. We could show, if we have time real quick, their numbers. Like, it's tough to make a case for Paul George in comparison to the other guys. Like, of the three, Giannis has him crushed in rebounds. They both have him crushed in assists. Giannis has the far better record, and Harden has him crushed in points. Like, Paul George having a great year, and first-team All-NBA will be a hell of an award for him. Very, very hard to make the MVP case for him.
All right, let's move on to the NFL now. The Cowboys, they've got a number of decisions to make this offseason, most notably whether or not to extend quarterback Dak Prescott. Prescott said he doesn't want to do a team-friendly deal a la Tom Brady, saying he expects the Cowboys to, quote, pay what's deserved. He elaborated, saying nobody's wife makes as much money as his does either. When Tom Brady isn't the breadwinner in the home, then that's a great problem to have. So in that case, he can do that. He can do this contract however you want to do it. All right, CC, what are your thoughts on Dak Prescott's comments?
Yeah, first of all, I believe if Tom Brady, even if he wasn't married who he's married to and she was making the money, I don't believe he'd be one of the top paid quarterbacks, because that's the way Bill Belichick does business. It's the way he's always done it. Look at their roster. Look at the rest of their starters. Outside of Stephon Gilmore, tell me a guy that's one of the top 5 at his position. Okay. All right? Gronk wanted more money. They put it in incentives, all right? That's how they normally make you earn your money. So I think Dak, it's a conversation, and people like to mention it. But when you look at New England and how they do their books wouldn't be that much different if Tom Brady was single. This is what they do. They value the contracts. They are not going to pay aging veterans. They're not going to give guys long-term contracts and guarantees. So for me, yeah, I know it probably sounded nice and everything, but as far as Jerry Jones got to pay Dak. And it's based on how they do things economically, how they do things in New England. That's why Brandon Cooks got traded. It wasn't because he couldn't play. It's because he was up for a new contract. And we've seen that with other players, Chandler Jones and others. So for me, Tom Brady, yeah, it sounds cute to be able to mention his wife and the amount of money that she makes. But the way New England does business, no one is getting their value on the open market.
It's the way New England does business, and it speaks to what Brady has placed value on. Brady has decided, I'm going to be defined first and foremost by rings and longevity. And so the way he has allowed his contract to be structured has given him the best chance to stay as competitive as possible, because he's eating up 50% of the cap space he would on a typical team. And when you say you want to play to your 45 and you don't know, when he signed this last deal, he didn't know he was about to win league MVP. It's a lot easier. If you have a bit of a down year and it looks like maybe I could be replaced, it's a lot easier to have your case be made when you're not a $28 million a year quarterback. Now, Dak should be careful for a couple reasons. One, I was shocked he brought up Brady's wife. Like, you almost never hear
you
a
know
player.
I was shocked. Nor did I like it.
Listen, I know we talk about that on TV in the frame of his wife makes a lot of money. And even when we do that, and I'm one of the people that does it, I always wonder, I'm like, how does that sit with Tom Brady? But it's not really my job to worry about how it sits with Tom Brady. It's to educate people, right? But for Dak, for one of the brothers to say, one of the brotherhood say, he's not the breadwinner in his family, that was... I bet someone will say to him, you probably shouldn't say that publicly, even if it's what you think. But the other reason Dak should be careful is he says, I want to get paid what I deserve. Well, right now what you probably deserve is, for the majority of teams, go ahead and play the 4th year and let's see. Go ahead, before we split you off.
You can very seldom say what you deserve. All right? Kirk Cousins got a number out there. You know, what you need to get is what someone will pay you. That's your value. Regardless of what you think, what the market... Like, what Dallas will pay you, that's what Dak should, that's his overall value. I think Dak is just, he's new at this, and you can tell through this interview, he said a lot of things that he made him look very, very green.
That being said, what we know about Jerry Jones, will Dak Prescott be the highest paid quarterback in the league?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, but he'll be.
Why should he?
No, he'll get what he's making $1 million a year. He's going to be around that $25 million a year range. And Dak knows Amari's about to get paid. Zeke's probably about to get paid. He wants to get paid as well. But when he says what I deserve, I think there's a lot of teams that would say, Dak, we're very happy with what you showed at the second half of last year. We're excited to see you in year 4, knowing they have the franchise tag to hold over him. Like, he's lucky he's on the Cowboys. One of the only teams, and Jerry Jones, one of the only owners, I think, that would be in a rush to pay him.
Yeah, and I'm going to give Dak credit, because typically people are a little more self-aware in this day and age. Not everyone, Jenna, but some people are a little more. So I'm going to give him credit. He realized wearing that star, being the Dallas Cowboy quarterback, what it means. And I'm sure he wants less than what the market will get just so he can stay there with Zeke, with Amari Cooper, that big offensive line, all those things to benefit his career.
Sure, he's got a great situation there moving forward. Take a break. Coming up, back to basketball. Could the Sixers be the best team in the NBA? That's ahead on First Things First. Back here on First Things First, NBA champ Antoine Walker joins the show.
Good to see you.
Boy, Antoine, we got lots of questions. Great storylines in the NBA right now. Let's start with the big showdown Sunday between the Lakers and the Sixers. I mean, it was billed as such, turned out to be a big blowout between the two. Joel Embiid did lead the way for the Sixers with 37 points. Sixers just blowing out the Lakers 143-120. New addition Tobias Harris chipped in with 22 points. This is going to be a great starting five. To say Joel Embiid sees the potential on this team now would be an understatement. Take a listen.
It's only been 2 games, but I think we got a chance. We got a lot to work on. Obviously, our whole offensive package hasn't been, used. We got a long way to go. But I think the potential we have, especially come playoff time, matching up with other teams, I think we got a chance, and we got to keep working, keep getting better, and learn how to play with each other.
Oh, I think he knows they've got more than just a chance once this all locks in. Are the new-look Sixers, Antoine, looking like contenders now?
Definitely. I think that they have the second best starting lineup in the NBA behind Golden State. When you think about from top to bottom, to be able to switch multiple guys that can play multiple positions, I think it's the second best, hands down, not even close, behind Golden State. They are the best team in the East. I know it's going to take some time, but I think they are the best team in the Eastern Conference right now. Can they get to Golden State? That's going to take some time. I mean, they will have to play like they played yesterday. 33 assists, make 12 threes.
Never turn the ball over.
Play a team that plays no defense.
Yes. So it'll be a different story playing Golden State. But in the East right now, the way they're constructed, if everybody's willing to be disciplined and figure it out and not fight over shots, I don't see nobody beating them in the East.
I think their own personal confidence, too, in the head-to-head, and when they played Golden State recently, that confidence and adding these new players. So they weren't even as good a team then. When they defeated Golden State on the West Coast, and then now they're a whole new team. I do like their starting lineup. It is a lot better. And with J.J. Redick, when you have Ben Simmons at the point guard and when you have Tobias Harris in there, you can hide J.J. Redick more. You can't hardly hide him that often, but you can hide him on the defensive end. And I just believe Tobias Harris, if utilized the right way, because I don't know what the coach. I don't know how good he's going to be, because last year in the playoff series, I was not impressed with the coach. Jimmy Butler has talked about their offense not having a type of flow to it. So how's the offense going to evolve as they go down the stretch? I like them playing at pace. And then when they do slow it down, it needs to go through Joel Embiid. If they're going to do that, I have a lot more confidence moving forward, Nick, than previously.
And Jimmy Butler and his personality can be an X factor here. And for the Sixers to reach their full potential, somebody needs to get to Jimmy Butler and say, listen, man, here's your role on this team. The last 2 minutes of the game are yours. The other 46, it's free-flowing. Embiid's going to be the focal point, but you, Ben, Tobias, and JJ, it's going to be good shot, great shot for you guys. And for Ben Simmons, good shot, layup, right? Like his shot's not a part of it. If Jimmy Butler can accept that his role is closer, his role is if a possession breaks down, you need someone who can get an isolation bucket. I know Tobias Harris can. I think Jimmy Butler's better at that, and I think that is the way to make him happy with his role. Then they are the most dangerous team in the East. Because here's the one thing about Milwaukee, and it's why I'm so interested in watching them come playoff time. When you've got 2 weeks to drill down on Giannis, when he's the only guy when you can build your entire game plan for a couple weeks about slowing him down, then in the playoffs, how much will his lack of a jump shot hurt him? And how much will it change what has been the best team in the league through 55 games, the Milwaukee Bucks? Because Philly no longer has that issue. Philly, it's not, well, if we take Ben Simmons away, like in last year's playoffs. You know what? we're going to play Ben Simmons like he's a dead duck, and what can they do? They didn't have Jimmy Butler. They didn't have Tobias Harris. They were living and dying with whether or not Bellinelli and Ilyasova were hitting shots. They're so much better equipped for that this year that I think Philly is the only team in the East that could put a real scare in Golden State. Now, I don't know that they'll get there, but if they do, they're the only one I think built that could actually scare them.
To touch on the Jimmy part, I think when you think about Jimmy Butler, I think he's humble. He didn't make the All-Star team. I think he's humble now.
Okay.
I think he's humble now. He understands that he's going to have to play a role. I think for Jimmy Butler, he's got to get back to being a defensive player. We seen him a couple years ago.
Absolutely.
Locking in. Last night, he took 10 shots. He didn't take a lot of shots. I thought he was very efficient. I thought he stayed engaged in the game. He has to get back to doing what he does well, and that's guarding. You got other guys that can score the basketball, and he is their closer.
Right.
He's the guy I want the ball in, with 2 minutes to go in the game. He can make a big shot. He can put his body on somebody, get to the foul line. And then you think about with Milwaukee is different. I think you're getting a 7-game series. I still don't trust Milwaukee. I know they're having a great season. Giannis can be guarded in a 7-game series because now you're going to force him to be a jump shot shooter. I mean, you watch him play now. Yeah, he's
That's
going to force.
concern.
And I don't know if they address that issue and adding enough three-point shooters around Giannis moving forward when you get in the playoffs. But they're having a great season. But I think Jimmy Butler's going to be humble. Now, I mean, I think, he didn't make the – Victor Oladipo was hurt, and he still didn't get voted in.
Right.
So he's probably humble now. He's probably started thinking about his contract. He went from a max player. I don't think he's a max player anymore. He's a guy probably now looking at a little under the max. He's probably not going to get the max money that he thought he was going to get in the free agent market unless the Knicks or Brooklyn, somebody panics. And sign him to big money. But I think he's humble.
If you listen to what Joel Embiid said, he keeps mentioning if we can make this work, if we can get us, we can on the same page, if we can all play together. Your brother was a coach, you were a player. When you're inside an NBA locker room, there aren't that many guys. Is it more on the players to figure out how to gel, or is it the coach that's going to step in and say, okay, this is our team going down the stretch. Like, we have to figure it out. Where does that land?
I can only take you back to 2006 when we played, and you had a bunch of personalities in there. One thing that was great about us, we necessarily had a great season. Chris, you was down and we played. We didn't have the best season. I think we won like 52 games.
Talking about in Miami.
So we won like 52 games. But we had a great locker room. We had this slogan called 15 Strong, where we would just put these cards in there. We was together as a team. And people may not think this matters, but off the court, us being together tight made for better play come playoff time. And the whole goal was to win the NBA title. So I don't know if that's their goal.
Absolutely. That's a great point there. You are right. That Miami team, they did gel. And when you have players, Tobias Harris looking for a contract, this is the first time. He's been on 5 teams. This is the first time an NBA team said, you know something? You're part of our future. And you could see that in his few games. He is plenty comfortable. He's the second best scorer that they have out there on the court. Jimmy Butler, he was a max player. He's been an all-star. All these things, is he willing to sacrifice coming down the stretch? And Ben Simmons, what is his game in the playoff? If y'all think they can play Giannis, how y'all think they're going to be able to guard Ben? I mean, So I just, how they're going to have to play, there's a lot of sacrifice from the coaching staff and from the players. But these star players, especially Tobias and Jimmy Butler, they're looking for a new contract. So winning to them, is it first? Winning was first priority for all 15 of those players.
No question.
Will it be first for the Sixers? That's a huge question.
And that is the only question. The only reason they wouldn't make it out of the East with as good as Milwaukee's been, or at the very least be in the Eastern Conference Finals in a slugfest with Milwaukee, is if, to quote Pat Riley, the disease of more gets to them. Is if they don't. This would be the perfect NBA 2K team because there ain't no egos. Everyone knows their role. JJ knows when he's going to get his shots. Jimmy knows what he's supposed to do. Tobias, all those guys. But if all of a sudden Joel feels like, man, I'm not getting featured enough, or Ben feels like, man, just being a facilitator, rebounder, defender, I want to show I'm more than that, or Jimmy worries about getting the max, or Tobias worries they said they're going to give me the max, but if I was averaging 21. Now I'm down to 14. We know JJ's happy to be there and is very comfortable in his role, knows exactly what that role is. But if they can take a page out of Golden State's book, which has been, man, the numbers don't matter, the wins do. We all get paid, we all eat if we win a championship at the end, then this will be the second best team in basketball. But this also could be a team that gets down 2-1 in the second round, and you hear one of their star players gripe at the other one, you say, man, what a disappointing run for Philly. It's all about the personalities because the talent is undeniable at this point.
Could you see what's happening in Boston right now, which is what they're hoping doesn't happen in Philly? Antoine, stick around. Coming up, could Paul George be playing his way into the MVP conversation? Next on First Things First. Check us out tomorrow. Super Bowl champ Stephon Gilmore joins the show. It's Tuesday on First Things First. Got a lot of questions for Stephon. It'll be nice to have him here.
Absolutely. He was best defensive player on the Pats all year long.
It's one of my kids.
Back here with Antoine Walker. We're talking Rockets and Thunder. Didn't look like a great game when the Thunder found themselves down 26, but came all the way back fourth quarter. Paul George hits the three. He had 45 on the night. Less than a minute to go. James Harden hit the runner to put the Rockets up 1. He had 42. Next possession, Russ makes the layup. Thunder up 1. Westbrook, 9 triple-doubles in a row. That ties the NBA record. Harden tried to give the Rockets the lead. It does not fall. Thunder overcoming their largest deficit this season. They go on to win 117-112. Antoine, let me start with you. Who do you think is the bigger threat to the Warriors? Would it be the Thunder or the Rockets?
Oh, that's a tough one. I had to go with the Rockets, and just because of the offensive show that James Harden is putting on this year. I just think, he's at an unprecedented level on the offensive end. He's mastered the way to score under these new rules, be able to get to the foul line. I think Chris Paul, if he can stay healthy coming towards the end of the season, he's got a lot of rest.
Come on, I know they say this in Chicago just like they do in where I'm from. If was a fifth, we all be drunk. That Chris Paul, man, that's a big if.
That's a big if, but I also like the addition of Amon Shumpert. He reminds me a little bit of Trevor Ariza, a guy that can guard. He can make an open three. You add that guy. I like him better than Gerald Green. Yeah, and then Eric Gordon too. You also had him. And then you can't take a lot from this game because Clint Capella was not playing.
Correct.
So that's why I'm looking at. So I like Houston as a bigger threat than anybody because they're able to score the basketball at a very high level.
The case for the Thunder, to me, is a very simple one. Paul George, we have less of a reason to believe Paul George's play is going to change in the postseason than James Harden's. Harden, first of all, at some point he's going to stop averaging 42, like he's been averaging since December 13th. So let's assume he gets back to a regular 35 a night. There is reason to believe he's not going to get as many calls in the playoffs, that the teams are going to try to trap him at midcourt, force the ball out of his hands, as we've seen in the past, and that Paul George's game is more transferable to the postseason. But the other reason that you can make the case for Oklahoma City is, can Russell Westbrook play like he did 2 years ago for 2 weeks in the postseason? That's the question. Can Russell Westbrook get back to that level of play?
Russ is my guy. I love Russell. I think he's, arguably, a lot of people argue me. I like him as the best point guard because he brings it every night. But the thing with Russ, he's not efficient enough for me this year.
Yes.
His offensive game is not polished like it was 2 years ago.
Well, that's my point.
That's what bothers me about him.
I totally agree, which is what the only way they would be in the discussion is if a guy that 2 years ago shot 85% from the free throw line and this year shooting 66 gets back to that. If a guy who 2 years ago shot 35% from three and this year's at 29% gets back to that. He has to for them to be a real threat out west.
Yeah, outside of Steph Curry and Clay, y'all tell me just honestly, who you going to appropriate any type of faith to shooting under 25% from three? Seriously, who? Because y'all can't be just sitting there and be like, oh, man, for 2 weeks, Russ can't hit a shot now.
You can't hit.
He's shooting under 25%. Even in the big comeback, man, he took a couple shots he shouldn't took. So for me, if he gets hot, you know what that's who's going to affect? It's going to affect Paul George. Because he's been deferring to Paul George. He's been passing off a lot of them shots. He's been faking like he's going to take them, and he's been giving to Paul George, and Paul George has been – that's why they've won 10 out of the last 11.
Well, they're not deep enough. Let's be honest. They're not deep enough to beat a Golden State team in a 7-game series. Because now you got to rely on the role players. I don't know how good OKC role players is going to be. I mean, I like Dennis Schroeder. I think that's a great pickup.
Yes.
But then, Steven Adams is going to be solid. But then where you go after that?
Well, that's the thing about the point guard. When Russ is playing like he is now, it's not the numbers. He makes those other players so much better. That's why he is a triple-double waiting to happen. It's not about his three-point shooting. Now, as a floor general, Russ knows how to run a team. So if y'all tell me Russ is going to keep this back seat, I would have more faith in him that way compared to if he catches fire it's going to have a negative effect. Those other role players aren't as good because Russ is getting them into the paint and dishing out purposely to open up the court for those other players.
We spent an earlier part of the show talking about how good Paul George has been and how good Paul George has been for the Thunder. We know how good Harden is. Would you pit these two together? Who would win MVP between the two?
Listen, I think right now MVP is a two-man race with Paul George a very clear third.
Okay.
I think that Harden is having the most individually spectacular season of anybody and one of the most individually spectacular seasons we've seen in modern NBA history on the offensive end. The reason it's a two-man race, despite that, and we can show it if you want, is Giannis has the one thing that has always been the MVP tiebreaker: overwhelming team success.
Team success.
They're going to win 60 games. It's not like his numbers are bad now. 27, 12, and 5. Like that is on a very short list, along with Anthony Davis and Kareem, for centers that have put up slash lines like that. But if you're either going to give it to the guy who's been great on an amazing team in Milwaukee or the individual success, Paul George, to me, doesn't check either box.
Now, Paul George, there is a storyline. We all saw that horrific injury. We see what Gordon Hayward is doing in Boston with that same type of injury. So I think it's baked in there. We can't remove that scar of seeing that, man, because we hadn't seen a basketball player get injured like that and see him now getting 28. But for James Harden, to his credit, he has 2 seasons, forget this season, that are better than the way Paul George is playing. Let's not forget when he got robbed of being an MVP a couple times. So, yeah, Paul George is playing great. Harden is the only one in that conversation if it's between those two, but we know it's between him and Giannis.
Yeah, I think it's Giannis. I think Paul George is third. He's having a great year. Unfortunately, these guys are having better years because now Giannis has got the wins.
You think Giannis over Harden?
Yes, I think Giannis over Harden. I just think when you look at Milwaukee Bucks roster, I mean, obviously we know a new coach, they play a different style, but there's other guys on that team that they're not very. Milwaukee does, even though they got the best record, I'm not scared of them come playoff time. I don't think they're better than Toronto. I don't think they're better than Boston. I don't think they're better than Philly come playoff time. I like them during the season. They've been great. Giannis has been unbelievable. But I think Giannis, the season that he's having, to be able to win at the level that they're winning at right now, he deserves MVP. James Harden, I mean, I don't get me wrong. I enjoy watching him play. He's one of the great offensive talents. But I believe what he's doing right now, it's tough when you dribble it 20 times. You take a lot of, you're going 5 for 19 for 3 sometime. It's tough to give a guy like that MVP.
Listen,
I know they squeaked out some wins.
People bring up then he went 5 for 20 from 3. For all the times people bring up these bad three-point shooting nights, he's shooting 38% on the year. So he must have some good three-point shooting nights to go along with it. Now, in Giannis's favor, which none of us have mentioned, he might be the best defensive player on the #1 ranked defense in basketball. And so that doesn't show up in those stats I showed you. Is Giannis's defense, why do the Bucks have the best record in the league? Yeah, they got a top 5 offense, but they have the #1 defense in the league.
And #2 as far as shooting threes per game. People don't look at Milwaukee as, whoa, really? Outside of Golden State, they're hitting the second most threes. So that's that new style that you're talking about that has definitely
Chris
led
Middleton's
to.
an all-star. Eric Bledsoe's played, up to this level this year. So he's got the guys to step up. But I like Giannis this year for MVP.
When Harden's averaging 37, 7, and 8 for the year, 37, 7, and 8, and Giannis is in the discussion, it speaks to how good he's been. I don't think it's over yet. I don't think Harden's won the thing yet, but it would be shocking if the MVP is anyone other than Harden or Giannis, no matter how great Paul George has been.
Thank you for listening to the First Things First podcast. Remember, leave us a review and tell us what you think. Subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and catch us on FS1 Monday through Friday, 6:30 a.m. Eastern. For Cris Carter and Nick Wright, I'm Jenna Wolfe. So long, everybody.